Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today, we're going to be talking about Meeples Monsters, the brand new Kickstarter from AEG Games. Now, this is a Kickstarter preview, and this is a prototype copy that I'm working with, despite the fact that even the Meeples have been fully customized and painted, or at least screen printed. This is a fairly nice production copy. In this preview, I'm going to give you a quick overview of exactly what this game is, so you can be interested or compelled, and then I'm going to talk about some of the highs and lows, my personal opinion around my play experience, and what you might be looking for or paying attention to when you decide if this is one that you want to add to your shelf. Now, the artwork, flavor text, and story is all very family-friendly. It's a lovingly little scene of various different meeple heroes and creatures, one that has a repair kit of glue ready to staple and stick everything back together. It has a whimsical artwork and nature to it, but the reality is, this is a fairly interesting and compelling, slightly above entry level bag building worker placement game. Now, if that has piqued your interest, stay tuned to see exactly what is in this. I'm telling you, I underwrote this game when I first approached it, and after I sat down and played, and then continued digging in, there is a lot of depth here to experience. The core conceit of a bag building game is going to be very similar to a deck building system, where you're going to be adding different resources into a bag. In this case, it's going to be various different types of meeples. Now, each of these meeples will have their own stat cards and upgrade lines or pathways that allow them to get more proficient at various different tasks that they can do. Whether that is building new buildings for you to go to with your worker placement action, recruiting more heroes and more special powers, upgrading your other units, solving and accomplishing quests, or going to fight the monsters that are slowly encroaching upon the city wall. You're going to be filling your bag with various types of meeples, and throughout the course of the game, depending on what stage of the game you're in, you'll be drawing out a certain number of them. 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes handfuls of meeples at a time, and then determining how you want to utilize them here in the city. A worker placement game is going to be where you take those meeples and assign them to different locations, taking the resulting action and getting whatever benefit or consequence there is in association with that. Many of these actions will give you more meeples, allow you to upgrade, and some will put you in direct combat or engage you with a monster. The main objective of this game, your main goal, is to score as many victory points as possible before the clock runs out. The clock in this case being a deck of cards, which are going to be stacked and organized with a series of Dark Council cards and items in here. Once all of the Dark Council has finally arrived, that'll be the final and ultimate showdown where you score the remaining victory points you're able to and determine who exactly is the winner. So that's the core concept of the game. Now, there's different areas and pressure mechanics that you'll be pushing on, from upgrading and building brand new worker placement zones here in the center of the map by going to these different regions, to leveling up and gaining various special cards, not only taking your average basic worker meeples and increasing their capacity, their damage, what they're able to be utilized for, but also, and most importantly, gaining special and exclusive meeples by accomplishing specific quests, going to very specific tiles that must be constructed here in the city's gates, or defeating high-level monsters. As you play the game, your bag will get more full. The progression and cycle of gaining workers, placing them down, upgrading, leveling up, and then next turn hopefully utilizing what you just built gets more and more interesting. But there is also some negative consequences to protecting the city from a series of monsters. You see, depending on how full your bag is, it may be a while before you get back to the workers that you've added. And in a lot of cases, depending on where you're fighting, if these city regions are overrun with creatures, meaning they have more than one monster at the city gate, you're going to be gaining more villager meeples into your bag. These white meeples that are good at recruiting, but late game really start to bog down how your engine is flowing. So there's a balance here of calling your deck, filling it up as much as possible, getting superpowers and abilities, and then finally hopefully being able to scoop them all out on one turn and using or utilizing all of their main abilities and mechanics. Now, before we get into my opinions and overview of this game, from the positive to the negative, there is a little bit of flavor text that I would not feel right if I didn't read. This is a Quackalope video after all. A dark shadow has fallen upon the realm of Rowan. The evil forces of Mordra pulled on the power of Sauron. Together with unfathomable monstrosities from the realm of people, they have found a way to enter your world and are now invading everywhere. The king's army, weakened by years of war, but a thin veneer of its former self. The desperate king turns to you, lords and ladies of the land, asking you to take action and save the realm from the dark powers. Whoever musters the most potent force, completing quests, adventures, and proving the most effective against the invaders will be declared the new Earl Marshal and win the game. So, my opinions. This is kind of what you're here for. I gotta be honest, when I first got this title in, the artwork just didn't do it for me. Now, I could be alone in this, but playing more classic Euro-style games or more mature or adult-themed games with brutal, meeples fighting monsters, real tactical showdowns, the more whimsical, artsy style, the more family-focused style, wasn't something that initially thought or convinced me that this game was going to be as good as it was. Because here's the compelling part for me. I like the artwork. I think the artwork is very well done. I think it looks great. I just don't think it gives, to me, the best initial interpretation of what this game is. This game is good. It's got a degree of crunch to it. It's just beyond entry level, and it has room to scale with more special characters and abilities, potential meeples that are going to be added in, I certainly hope, and you have these extra quests and special items and abilities that you can go on throughout the course of the game. So there's little mini expansions built into this. This is, as far as I'm concerned, a very good bag building worker placement game. An interesting combination that's playing off of some mechanics that are my favorite in this industry, that whole deck building concept. But I don't think the artwork presents that. I think the artwork tells people that this is going to be a family-only game or a family-friendly game, which it absolutely is, but for gamers like myself, I think this one can rest on your shelf, and not only rest on your shelf, but you get to the table with a good hardcore or medium core player group. It is worth paying attention to if you're intrigued by the concept, but maybe not captivated by the theme. Now, when it comes to the best parts of Meeples and Monsters, there's going to be one main mechanic that I really, really, really enjoy, and it's going to be leveling up and customizing your bag. It feels so good to be able to draw out and have different abilities and special actions trigger. And as you go up here into the map, you utilize your workers through different stages, going first to a build action, and then a placement action in the various regions and on the various monsters. You'll be triggering and chaining more and more characters. And all of these characters have their own general stats, from a basic attack to any special abilities or really cool powers that you can use. And by mid to late game, you should be triggering, upgrading, and getting a lot of damage in a single turn. And if you've done that efficiently and effectively, you really start to feel like you've pulled together a scrappy little fighting force that is able to hold their own against the big bad. Now, along with that, however, unlike a lot of other worker placement games, there's no direct player interaction here, which is not a bad thing if you don't want player interaction in your worker placement games. All of these regions are limited to one-time use, but not limited based off of players around the table. So there's no feel-bad moments, which could be a positive for you and your gaming group, but I know for myself, I sort of wanted to feel like resources were a little bit tighter than they were. Like the puzzle was a little bit more complex to solve, and I would have been interested to see a game where everyone is drawing, placing meeples down on the board, and limiting the other city actions that other players could take. Being forced to do things like fight monsters to get the victory points, but potentially opening up a region that other players might be able to utilize. Now, when it comes to the expansions, the opportunity for growth, I have found the little mini expansions that were included in our prototype to be a welcome invitation into this title. They not only help it scale in an interesting way, but provide a little bit more depth of strategy for the players. I'm interested to see on the Kickstarter what, if any, other expansions and little modules they introduce. I'd be very compelled to see if they have any more meeples or characters or variations on the standard core that we're getting to just provide more variety when you're playing the game, more pathways that you can go down in order to try to score as many points as possible. Now, another thing that I think is really good, really well done, is going to be the fact that you're constructing the city district together. Now, like I said, there's no direct player interaction for the most part. There's player involvement, though, when it comes to the game state. Will you spend your workers in order to construct locations that not only you get to utilize, but other players get the benefit of? All of these locations around here indicate a bonus that you get for building locations, and they also indicate a location where you can grab a tile and construct something. It's great to do because you get the bonus for going there, but you've unlocked a tile for other characters or other players around the table, and along with that, there's a limited number of spots, so not all of these tiles will be placed down on the map every single game, and once again, I assume there'll probably be more of these worker placement locations available in the core game on Kickstarter. So that adds a really nice negotiation, a really nice dynamic to the game state. You're trying to determine what buildings are going to benefit and lead you down the pathway that you need in order to accomplish your deck building or bag building system, while other players are doing the same, always trying to gauge what benefits other people the most versus what benefits me the most. Now, following up with that, from our initial plays and our initial experience, we did run into cases where the game ran a little bit longer than we'd expected. Dealing with the creatures on the edge of the board is really the main way that you cycle the game forward. You always have to work through this stack of cards, and creatures do give you bonuses, special abilities, and victory points when you destroy them. However, cycling through this entire deck did take a significant amount of time. It went the full 60 to probably 75 minutes the very first time we sat down and played, and to us, the puzzle was really, really compelling right around that 45-minute mark. And I think the game will get better and quicker the more you play it with a group of people, but that initial puzzle really required that we dealt with creatures in order to engage with that active engine. And in the early stages of the game, we were really focused more on building our characters, getting more meeples, and developing our own deck, as opposed to fighting and shutting down various monsters, unless, of course, they just happened to be bothering us in whatever region that we wanted to go to. So, final opinions of Meeples and Monsters. I think this is an incredibly solid bag building and worker placement game. And if those two mechanics to you sound like a good time, I think this is one that is worth taking a closer look at, if not adding to your collection. Again, there's some elements of it that, for me, didn't quite hit all the perfect notes, specifically around the artwork and the player interaction, but I would have no problem recommending playing and inviting more people to sit down at the table with me. I think it's just above intro level, but I think you could start a game group at this as long as you had a comfortable teacher sitting down to help walk them through all of the different iconographies and the way that you might build out your strategy for the long game. As far as I'm concerned, I am sad I have to send this one off to another playtester. I would enjoy sitting down and playing this a few more times with my core game group, just to give it a few more swings and maybe actually win a game. Whatever the case, thank you for being here. Whatever you do, remember to do the important thing get out and play some games. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.